What are you drinking this summer? And where are you drinking it? Those are important questions for Cory Rellas. He is Drizly Co-Founder and CEO. Drizly is an alcohol delivery company, beverage delivery company. Cory, thanks so much for being here. You guys did a survey where you asked these questions. What are people drinking right now? How do they define things like hard seltzer? I guess I'll begin by asking, what did you find most interesting from the findings and what you asked people?
Sure. Well, thank you for having me. And obviously, it's a new time. I think with the world opening up, we expected to see some pretty significant differences, but a lot of what we saw was a continuation of previous themes. And the formats, ready to drink in particular, as well as hard seltzers, doing incredibly well. But with summer, it was good to see beer still topping the charts in terms of what people expected to drink over the coming months. And I think that responds to a bit of a normalcy movement relative to the cocktail making at home that a lot of us have been enjoying, but also probably tired of over the past 12 to 18 months.
Yeah, according to your survey, the drink that people won't be reaching for most frequently, 61% said beer, 56% said wine, and then hard seltzer came in at 29%, which was interesting. Ready to drink cocktails, 30%, which brings me to another question, which is the difference between the two. Ready to drink cocktails, hard seltzer, what is the difference between them, and kind of why does it matter? Why is it important, the distinction?
Well, it's important because you can actually have very different base alcohol within the two different formats. And as a consumer, it gets confusing. You start to think about hard seltzer. Is it a malt and carbonated beverage? Is the base spirit maybe vodka, like a High Noon, relative to a ready to drink format, which can often be pre-made cocktails? So you can actually get something very different. The hard part for consumers, and I think part of the confusion here, is how do the brands want to merchandise it? How do retailers want to merchandise it? And there's the combination of what drives the most sales, but also is accurate relative to what you're going to be consuming. So from a consumer point of view, I think it's important to know what you're consuming. And at the same time, I think the use cases and occasions may bleed together quite a bit. And that's absolutely fine. But as we come back towards the summer months and people are enjoying hard seltzer at an incredible rate, and now all this innovation has been spurred, the different flavors, the different formats. It's an incredible time to be a consumer, and at the same time, a little bit of a higher burden to understand what is in that packaging that you're consuming.
And let's talk about where people are drinking it, right? And this is obviously most relevant to your business because bars are open again. People can go out and drink. And so what's happened? Have you guys seen a drop in your business?
Well, I think we're seeing a natural inclination to go back to the on-premise world. And that, prior to COVID, that's about where 80% of the volume of alcohol was consumed. So I'm thinking bars and restaurants, you're consuming on-premise. I don't think we're back to those levels yet. I do hope we get back there, as that will speak to, again, a return to normalcy in our own social habits. But what's different on the off-premise side, so you're taking the packaging to go with you and consuming somewhere else, the predilection to order online. And that's not going back to pre-COVID levels. And we're seeing that actually with 55% of consumers saying they're going to order more alcohol online through Drizly and other options relative to pre-COVID times. So I think you're going to see the shift back to on-premise. And yet within the off-premise world, I think we've opened eyes as to the selection, the availability, and the promise of e-commerce for consumers.
I'm also curious if people are drinking more. I mean, there was some research that showed that people were drinking more not just drinking more at home, which was the only option, but just drinking more, period. And one would imagine that on the one hand, people might be self-medicating less now, but on the other hand, they're going out more. So I just wonder what all of that equals for you guys.
Well, from a volume perspective, the headlines last year were that people were consuming significantly more. We didn't actually see that in the data, and I think that's an important call out. Yes, people were drinking more at home. The social nature of alcohol when you're not on premise obviously changed quite a bit. And so that was the headline. But from a volume perspective, we don't see much change overall. Going forward, we haven't seen our numbers actually indicate that people are drinking significantly more, significantly less, where they're drinking it, the type of drink as we get into summer, and then the reopening phase of the geography that the particular consumer is in. We're seeing some differences there. But overall, we're seeing volumes in a pretty constant phase. And from this category's perspective, I think there's more innovation and more change happening, partially because of COVID, but also technology and the rise of e-commerce. It's a heck of a time to be a consumer, and I think you're going to see a lot of more options and a lot more choice, which is great at the end of the day.
And a heck of a time to be an e-commerce entrepreneur as well. Cory Rellas, Drizly co-founder and CEO. Good to see you, Cory. Thanks for being with us.